Somewhere beneath the Arabian Sea, 3 meters down, stone still remembers. Walls without a city, anchors without ships, a street plan drawn not by nature but by hands. For 3,000 years, one story called this a myth. The sea is now suggesting otherwise. This is Dwarka, the city the Mahabharata says Krishna built, and the sea swallowed whole in a single day. For centuries it lived only in verse, a golden capital of jeweled gates and coral streets, gone the moment its king departed the world. Then, in the 1980s, divers went looking for it, and found something. Not a fairy tale, blocks of dressed stone, anchors carved for ships that no longer exist, a skeleton of a settlement, resting exactly where the old text said the sea would take it. In 2025 and 2026, India's Archaeological Survey went back, with sonar, with photogrammetry, with tools S.R. Rao never had. What they're finding is reopening a 3,000-year-old argument. Is this Krishna's Dwarka, or is it something the legend simply grew around? Stay with this one. The answer is more interesting than either extreme. Long before anyone put a shovel or a diving mask near this coast, Dwarka already existed as a story. The Mahabharata and the Harivamsa describe it as Krishna's capital, a planned city on the western shore of Gujarat, built after he led his people, the Yadavas, away from Mathura. Sanskrit tradition calls it Dwaravati, the city of many gates, a place of broad avenues, palaces of gold and crystal, and gates that opened onto the sea itself. The texts are specific about its end too. After Krishna's death, the story goes, the Yadava clans destroyed each other in civil war, and within days the ocean rose and reclaimed the cities as if the sea itself had only been waiting for a reason. For most of history, that was where the story stayed. Scripture, not geography. A moral tale about impermanence, wrapped around a location no one could point to on a map. But Dwarka, the modern town, never stopped believing it was standing on the doorstep of something real. Pilgrims have come to its shoreline temple, the Dwarkadish, for over 1,000 years. Many of them watching the tide, wondering what it was hiding. It would take until the second half of the 20th century for anyone to actually go and look. If you've made it this far, you clearly like this kind of history, and yet most of you watching right now haven't subscribed. That's the only thing keeping this channel small. It takes 2 seconds, it's free, and every subscriber tells YouTube to show this to more people like you. So hit subscribe now, then let's get back to the story. In 1983, marine archaeologist S.R. Rao and a team from India's National Institute of Oceanography lowered themselves into the water just off the coast near the Dwarkadish temple. What greeted them wasn't rubble, it was pattern. Across 12 expeditions between 1983 and 1992, Rao's divers mapped submerged stone blocks arranged like walls, bastions, and pillars, not scattered debris but structure. Alongside them, stone anchors, three-holed and triangular, of a type used by ancient seafaring vessels. Pottery, tools, the unmistakable residue of people who had lived, worked, and moored ships at this exact stretch of coastline. Rao would go on to argue, controversially, that these remains dated to roughly 1500 BCE, placing them at the very edge of the late Harappan period. And, in his view, consistent with the era the Mahabharata assigns to Krishna's Dwarka. It was an explosive claim, and it split the archaeological world down the middle. Some colleagues backed him, others argued the dating was shaky, the walls could be natural rock formations shaped by tide and current, and that wanting a legend to be true is not the same as proving it. What nobody could dispute was this: something was down there, man-made, ancient, and deliberately placed on a coastline the old text had pointed to for 3,000 years. The debate didn't end in the 90s, it just went quiet, waiting for better tools. Between the 1980s surveys and today, roughly 980,000 square meters of seabed off Dwarka and the nearby island of Bet Dwarka have been examined across 8 separate investigation zones in waters ranging from 3 to 12 meters deep. The inventory that's come up is striking in its ordinariness, which is exactly why it matters. Not gold, not thrones, stone anchors in 3 distinct designs, fragments of walls and what look like bastions, potsherds, beads, copper rings, the kind of debris that isn't left behind by a myth, it's left behind by a working harbor. Some of the pottery and organic material recovered has been carbon dated to periods stretching back thousands of years, with the most cautious estimates placing the harbor's use somewhere in the late Harappan window between roughly 1900 and 1500 BCE. What researchers have not found is just as important to say plainly. No intact temple, no treasure, no grand palace complex rising from the silt. The undersea structures fit the profile of a coastal settlement and anchorage, not the jeweled megacity of the epics. That gap between what scripture describes and what divers actually bring up is the real center of this mystery, and it's exactly what the newest expeditions are trying to close. In March of 2025, the Archaeological Survey of India's underwater archaeology wing, led by Alok Tripathi, launched a new campaign off Dwarka and Bet Dwarka, this time with equipment Rao's generation never had: side-scan sonar, multi-beam bathymetric mapping, photogrammetry precise enough to build three-dimensional models of a site without ever lifting a single stone from where it rests. The new surveys widened the search grid across the Okamandal shallows and flagged fresh anomalies on the seabed, features consistent with jetty walls and grapnel-style anchors. An early field report from that April listed recoveries including Harappan-style stone anchors, inscribed potsherds, copper rings, and a dressed L-shaped stone block recovered from the eastern edge of Gomati Creek. Rather than excavate aggressively, the team is doing something more patient, layering sonar data with sediment coring and optically stimulated luminescence dating, a technique that can date the last time a grain of sand saw sunlight, to build a calibrated timeline instead of a guess. A peer-reviewed reassessment of the site's bathymetry, published in 2025, proposed a stone jetty dated to somewhere between 1800 and 1500 BCE. Later seasons, timed around Gujarat's calmer winter seas, are expected to refine that picture further, with new divers trained through ASA's underwater archaeology program joining the effort. None of this proves Krishna walked these streets, but it does something scripture alone never could. It gives a legend a measurable, testable shape. So, what is Dwarka really? To the archaeologists most skeptical of the Krishna connection, it's a genuinely important late Harappan-era harbor. Evidence that India's western coast was part of a sophisticated maritime trade network thousands of years before anyone wrote the Mahabharata down. That alone would make it one of the most significant coastal sites in South Asian prehistory. To those closer to Rao's original position, the coincidence is too precise to dismiss. A submerged settlement, roughly the right age, sitting exactly where an oral tradition, carried across 100 generations, said a city had been lost to the sea. Both readings can be true at once. A place can be a real ancient harbor and the seed a legend grew around. Myths rarely invent their geography from nothing. They tend to attach themselves to something that was already there. What's changed in 2025 and 2026 isn't the legend, it's the resolution of the evidence. For the first time, the tools exist to potentially date the site with real precision, and either sharpen the connection to the epics or quietly close the case. Either way, the sea is finally being asked to testify. 3,000 years ago, according to memory carried in verse, a city vanished beneath these waves in the space of a single tide. Whatever precisely lies down there, a king's capital or simply a harbor that outlived its own name, it has waited patiently under 3 to 12 meters of the Arabian Sea for someone to come looking with the right questions. Divers are still down there right now, brushing 3,000 years of silt off the last chapter of this story. History, it turns out, rarely disappears completely. It just waits to be found. If this kind of hidden history fascinates you, subscribe. There are more lost cities waiting beneath the waves. And tell us in the comments, which sunken or forgotten city should we uncover next?